So, you mentioned gentle parenting.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about what gentle parenting means to you?
What gentle parenting means to me, because there's a lot of different, um, I think, misconceptions about it. And even for myself, I thought it was very permissive or like passive, being like, oh, please don't do that. And that's not actually the case. Gentle parenting is giving them the ability to identify their feelings and their actions and their processing, and being able to regulate their emotions as they're developing. Um, so I wasn't really given that as a child. It was more like, um, stop crying before I give you a reason to cry, or suppress your feelings. Um, something better is coming. My dad was really big on spiritually bypassing what's happening instead of letting you process and break down and explain that, like, I feel really hurt by this and this is why. Um, so for me, it's going to be something that I'm learning as I go with her and as she grows, because I have to sit there and be like, okay, what am I feeling? Am I feeling okay? Is she upset? Am I upset? Where is this coming from? And how can we work through this, and what are the next steps?
So, you're a first time mother.
Yes.
How does that feel? Were you prepared for this?
I mean, I was and I wasn't.
What does that mean?
So what I mean by that, like, I was always babysitting for like either my siblings or my friends' children. As I grew up, I've been an au pair and a live-in nanny, and I've been paid to babysit and clean house at the same time. So I've been around children for many years, probably like 10 plus. The number is scary now when I think about it. But becoming a mom, there's so many intricacies that they don't prepare you for, and that they can't, because everybody's physically different, and the way that they're raised is different. So as I'm relearning how to parent my inner child and her, there's a lot of things I didn't encounter as a babysitter, so I feel completely unprepared and equally like, okay, well, I can do these things well, and I've worked in the past with other children, and I know, like, it's gonna be okay, but also it's very terrifying. It's a little scary. Just a little. Are you okay? New toy? Let's see. You want this one? You got options.
So, how would you say your support system what does your ecosystem in this look like?
Oh wow. The true blessing of babies has been her energetic pull has brought a lot of people I didn't originally think would be there to support me, and also has propelled people that I thought would be there to support me. So it's kind of growing and changing, and that's been really interesting to witness and watch, and I kind of mourn some of the times where people I really wanted to be a part of her life aren't there, and then I'm really grateful for the times where, like, my real family, I say my real family because I have like people that have adopted me in as an adult, and so they're a part of my life now in a different way than they ever were before. And my friendships have gotten closer, especially those with my mom, or not my mom, ones that are my mom friends, and just it's changing. It's really changing, and I'm loving, I guess, the ecosystem, as you say, as it's developing. Yeah.
You mentioned ASL.
American Sign Language.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. What a coincidence. So the mother that I spoke with yesterday talked about how they learned sign language to learn to, I guess, communicate before the talking
Yes.
phase. So tell me more about your experience with ASL.
Awesome. Okay, so there's a board on the wall right next to you, and it has a lot of different signs. You can look around the corner.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and there's pictures up there on that wall, which is like my adoptive dad and his daughters. And they were the first children to introduce me to American Sign Language because they taught them ASL to communicate with them. And the little one, Carolyn, she knew like 500 words, being like 2 years old, but they were signing everything to her. And they never had tantrums really or fits, and they wouldn't cry as much because could tell you exactly what was going on. And I was like, if I ever have children, I'm going to consider this route. And of course, I made friends who were in the hearing community, deaf community, and I wanted to be able to communicate with them. I only know the basics right now. I say basics, but I know quite a bit, but not enough to have like full-on conversation with someone who can sign every day, all day. I know like children speak, like the early stages of signing, and you start signing with them as soon as they're born, if you can. And she started signing back to me, I think around 2 months old, and she was signing mom, she would sign milk, she would sign pacifier, and then she would do this really tight, which is, as an adult, is like to the bathroom, like toilet, but it's diaper change, so it would be like this, diaper change, but she was doing this, and she still does this. I did mess up though. I accidentally made her regress because I was like excited. I was like, oh, she's got this. This is simple for her. I'll just play American Sign Language videos every morning and that will be our routine. And it overloaded her system. And so she stopped signing, but she still knows the signs that she's using regularly. And so I still sign them at her. And if they say around like 6 or 7 months, she's going to start re-signing again. She still signs this one and this one. But it's an incredible tool. I think it should just be mandatory for every human to learn sign language because the hearing community, they don't get to choose whether they're hearing or not. And being able to communicate is huge. So we're going to keep signing and signing until you're fluent with me. I'm going to keep learning.
Oh my God. You're giving me the biggest smile.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back to the conversation we were having a bit off record about the name.
Oh, yeah.
So what was the importance behind naming your baby? Like, what was that whole process like for you?
The process was honestly really difficult. People were finally coming to me, what is her name? What are you going to name her? The whole pregnancy. And a lot of my close friends are just like, it'll come to you. I run into a stranger and she was born. And so I named her right at 2 months old. A lot of things change for you when you turn 2 months old, huh? Yeah. But they would say things like, oh, it took my parents 3 weeks to name me, or it took them a year to name me. And I just couldn't feel her name within me. I want to name her so many things, and I had lists and lists of names. Yeah. But I kept coming back to the Nazirah, which was what they actually called Jesus instead of the name Jesus. I thought it was really nice. I was like, I want to kind of make the girl version of that. And my favorite teacher, his name is Ramdas, and so I was like, I wanted to be servant because his name means God's servant. I was like, I want her to be, have such a gift with changing her own destiny. And so I don't know, it took a long time, and I kept hearing when I was pregnant just the name I am. I was like, like, okay, so how can I make this her name and without it just being like I am on a piece of paper. Yeah, but her nephew calls her Zaya because his name is Ezekiel, but his nickname is Zeke, and he's like, her name's gonna be Zaya. He's like, okay, he's 5. He just named her.
Oh, so she's already an auntie. You're an auntie.
Yes.
You're an auntie like me? Oh my gosh. So that's a bit unconventional.
Oh, not her nephew. Oh, sorry, her cousin.
Oh, her cousin.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I was like, wait a second.
So your nephew.
Yeah, my nephew.
I was like, oh, you're already an auntie. We relate. So that's a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
Naming your baby after birth is not a practice that I'm accustomed to. So was that purposefully done?
Not at all. I was praying and meditating on her name so much, and I kept coming back to the same. What is going on? Are you not feeling too hot? Hey, yeah, here, we'll use this time. And it felt like a lot of pressure, and you know, even coming to like getting her birth certificate and taking her to the pediatrician, because she was born in this house. I had an unmedicated birth in my bathtub, and I had a midwife come and help me breathe through the transition of becoming a mother. And they were like, oh, you've got plenty of time to name her. If you have a name already, they're like, you'll know when it's her name. And I was just still so unsure. So it took me a while to figure it out. And I've still, after I did finally name her, let me give you your password. I still was like, it's subject to change. It's definitely subject to change. Because I was like, is this really going to be your name? Just giggling.
So with such, like, I feel like everything's a bit unconventional, like with your story, like you had a home birth, which isn't like, I mean, it's becoming more popular now again.
Finally.
But, you know, and then the whole naming process, do you feel like you receive judgment in any way from society because of that?
Great question. I'm trying to think of examples. So, yes, sort of in the beginning, people were scared for me. I was scared for me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to. The last stretch of my pregnancy during the 3rd trimester, I was literally a month away. And the midwife I originally talked to, I really loved her. I wanted her to be the person for my birth. Her partner passed away, and so she had to drop me, and so the universe pulled someone to me, and they brought a midwife and a doula. But when I would talk about it with people, they were kind of like, well, what if something happens? What if something happens? You are too far from the hospital. It would take about 20-25 minutes to get to a hospital, worst case scenario. And I had to remind myself when I was going to get my treatments and getting, checkups at Piedmont, the doctors and nurses there, I did not bring it up to them that much, but they were constantly trying to tell me something was going wrong. And I noticed that there was a huge gap of vulnerability for doctors to mothers who were pregnant. They're being like, oh, you're going to need a C-section, and you're going to need to do this, and you need to be induced. They tried to take her 3 weeks early before her birthday. And I was like, well, why? They're like, oh, well, she's showing up on the ultrasounds too small. And they didn't know that there was a twin inside at the same time, so she was just going to be full term, but a smaller size baby. She was like 5 pounds and 9 ounces. But that was because she was sharing my uterus, and they didn't find that on any of their ultrasounds. but she was completely healthy, and I wouldn't let them do that. So I had to fight in order to have a birth at home, especially with Piedmont. They tried to forcibly induce me the week of her due date, and it didn't work because the universe is in control, really. I don't know. It was hard to stand up for myself, but it's kind of like one of the first lessons that I gained becoming a mom, being pregnant. It's just bodily autonomy and listening to my body about, is this going to be okay? That there was a lot of here and there, like families was like, cool, you got this, and some people are just like, I can't believe you're gonna do that. That sounds terrible. Like, I just want to be medicated, C-section, and done. Other moms being like, I wish to God I was able to give birth at home. So I think like society is tilting. They said when COVID hit, home births became very popular because they were afraid of giving birth in the hospitals where they could get sick again.
Is she falling asleep again?
Probably.
So I talked to different mothers, and I get different answers. Did you enjoy your pregnancy?
I did. Besides throwing up was rough. Everything makes you throw up. You literally can't like brush your teeth even for a month, or some women have it all their pregnancy, but for me, I threw up for about like 2 months, and I fainted twice. I didn't realize like I was just not eating enough in the beginning because it was hard to keep food down, and getting too hot, like just from taking a shower, like hit the ground. But I did enjoy being pregnant. I had a pretty easy time overall, I would say.
Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah, because I'm 35, and they were like, you have a geriatric uterus, you're not gonna blah blah blah, just all kinds of negative, and I was like, whoa.
What is a geriatric uterus?
So the hospital considers uteruses that are 30, I think, and older to be geriatric. When I don't know what that's about necessarily. I guess because there is the possibilities of complications. I don't think that, for my own opinion, that my uterus is that old, because I got my I hit my period around 17 years old, and so I was like, oh, my uterus is really not that old. It's just, maturing. And they're like, oh, you've got old lady uterus. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know.
That is interesting.
They did, dude. That was like, excuse me? Like, I don't think so. I feel pretty good. Like, I think that our uteruses mature a lot, slower than recommended. Like, because when you're a teenager and, like a child, some people get their periods at 10 years old. Do you think they're ready to just pop out children? They're still a child themselves. I think it's like the societal push of like, oh, well, get married, have a baby. Like this, get married, have a baby. And our bodies are still developing. They're still constantly, our brains don't really stop developing until we're in our 30s. And so, like, if my brain's not done developing, what about my uterus? Like, I don't think that she's done. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
You mentioned development.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that something that you study, or were you already studying like development of human brains and things like that before, or is that new?
Kind of a mixed bag. I've definitely been aware of development, just the different stages from babysitting, but no professional training other than personal experience and trial and error and trying things and seeing the repercussions of that. Even within myself, I do my homework. I definitely look up a lot of stuff. I looked up so many videos for just even being able to give birth at home and what to expect. I do have a woman that comes once a week, and it's through the Healthy Families program they have in Athens, and she talks to me about child development, and I took like a family parenting class as well, because I wanted to be the best. I mean, I'm just a good enough parent at least to look out for what to be aware of and make sure that her life is vastly different than the way I grew up. Just in a good, safe space. So we talk about her brain development, her motor functions, her milestones, and that's how we figured out that she develops a little bit faster. They're like, oh, she's so advanced. I'm like, she's all right. You're doing great. You're doing a great job being a baby.
Is there anything more difficult than like the next? So is putting her to sleep like a difficulty, or like breastfeeding or anything? Is there anything that feels like, oh, this is kind of hard?
Everything. Everything has been kind of hard. But if I had to pick, in the very early stages when she was first born, she has an upper lip tie. And so some babies are born with the little thing inside of their lip connecting to their gum line, and so it makes it difficult to latch. And some people have really short ones underneath their tongue, so it makes it harder for them to get suction, so they're a little more gassy. She couldn't really pool the milk for me, and I just kept getting engorged, and I had to use a nipple shield, and just like, it was so painful. She was pulling as hard as possible because she couldn't get a proper latch, and her little head was so small, and she was hungry. I was full of milk to give her, just in a lot of pain. There was so much pain around here. I could feel it in the nerves in my back. I hurt from the neck down because of everything else, and like, she was pulling like my tissue out of my nipple. Like, it was bad. So that was the hardest thing so far. Knock on some wood somewhere, because oh my god. Then this co-sleeping has made it easier for her, but the naps through the daytime, I'm finding some imbalances as she grows and she regresses, because we regress through our entire life through experiences we have, but for babies, like, there's kind of like a trackable timeline, and she's starting to teethe a lot, and so her biggest problem is just like scratching that itch. And she gets so frustrated, she'll just like pass out, and it'll only be for like 30 minutes, and she wakes up, and then our sleep schedule's off. So that's been kind of the imbalance I've been experiencing now. But oh goodness, the ease is just the joy of having a kiddo, and that love just being reciprocated back to you and just like poured onto you all the time. When a baby smiles at you, you're the coolest thing in the world to them, because that's all they know. So it's an even-ish trade.
What would you suggest, like, what tips would you give to new mothers?
Amazing. Don't give up. Those thoughts are normal. Everybody has those thoughts. They know what I'm talking about. And then getting this app is called Huckleberry. It really, anytime you sit down to breastfeed, you can just start a timer so you can see how long they've been eating, and you turn it off, and then when they take their naps, so that way you can kind of track how they're progressing or regressing and moving forward. You can track their diapers. One thing I really loved about Imani is she was so adamant about using words to help Raya use the bathroom, and so she's potty trained at 6 months old and would hold her pee, so she's got an easier leap to that transition from diaper to toilet. I haven't quite figured that out yet. I would love to do that though. And doing homework on yourself. You know, we're always so focused on the baby that we're way back here, and we feel that a lot of times, but we're like, we have to be right here with them and rechecking our emotions. But doing research on how to cope as being a new mother, to not, manage your emotions, to how to ask for help, how to sit there and take the time to just be like, I need someone to come over here so I can just take a shower, because if you have a work partner, if you don't have a partner at all, it's important to, they say it all the time, take care of yourself first before your kids, and it feels impossible, but we've got to, we just got to.
What would you tell yourself, your former self, pre-baby, before you got pregnant, but you knew, just say that you knew this was coming, what would you tell yourself to prepare for this?
Oh, God. You will do this alone. Not by choice. Not by careful planning. Not by prolonged waiting for the right person. But it's okay. And every day is getting easier. And you're gonna love her so much more than you know. God.